All right, welcome back to My Mom's Basement, ladies and gentlemen. I am here with Ryan Darth Bader, and we're here talking about The Smashing Machine, out October 3rd. I was lucky enough to see it early. I was just telling you, I thought your performance in this was great. I don't know how big a
Thank you.
role you would have, but it's a very big role in this movie. So, how did this all come about? How did you meet Benny? How did the role get pitched to you? What was all that like?
Yeah, appreciate it. Apparently, Benny Safdie was trying to reach out to me for a while, and I actually got it from my Brazilian training partner that doesn't speak English. It was like, hey, I got this email, and I'm looking at it, and honestly, I kind of heard Benny Safdie's name before. I love Uncut Gems, but I wasn't super familiar. And then he texts me, and I'm like, he's texting me something like, hey, I have a question about an MMA film, and I was like, huh, like, what's that mean? Like, want to tape sparring or something like that, right? Kind of blew him off for a while, and I had a fight in Saudi Arabia, and he texted me again, hey, I really need to get a hold of you, and I'm like, hey, can next week happen? I'm in Saudi Arabia. He's like, yeah, no problem. So I called him, and he prefaced it, hey, I'm Benny Safdie. I did Uncut Gems. We're doing this movie called Smash Machine, and I was like, oh, I've seen that documentary. Anything like that? And he's like, yeah. And that's my lineage, right? Like I grew up watching Mark Kerr, Mark Coleman, and he's like, "You interested?" And I said, "Absolutely." What do we do next? And he said, "All right, I'm gonna send you a script, and we'll do a little audition the next week." And kind of went from there. So I auditioned with him, no clue how I did, and then I got a text 3 weeks later. It was like, "Hey, see you in Vancouver." And then I was there doing a little stunt training, and then right into scenes with two of the biggest movie stars in the world. It was nuts.
Did you realize before you got the script how big the role in this movie would be? Was that intimidating for you?
I kind of knew. Well, I watched the documentary and I knew the story, right? And I knew Coleman was an integral part of the whole story. Um, and asking Benny, I'm like, hey, do I get it? I've never done this. My first time. Do I get an acting coach? And he's like, absolutely not. He's like, I'm your acting coach. I go, all right. So I felt like I could do no wrong. I showed up. I'm like, Benny,
Yeah.
you asked for me, right? But he was amazing and guiding me through the whole process, making me feel comfortable. And walking into my first big scene, he made me feel super comfortable. I was fine. I felt ready, and we just ran with it. And after you do that first one, it kind of snowballs and it gets easier and easier. And I could put myself in that situation, right? It's sometimes where, hey, we're getting interviewed at a fight, in a lobby, hooked to a lobby. I've been there a million times before. I've been in a locker room. Obviously the fights and the ring stuff was second nature to me. I could excel at that. But yeah, just kept my head down, prepared for it, and then tried to do my best in every scene.
What do you feel like informed your performance the most? Was it the footage from the documentary? Was it knowing Mark Coleman or talking to Mark Coleman, or was it just Benny's directing?
A little bit of everything. I definitely watched that documentary a bunch of times. And watch those fights. If in the movie those fights are true to form. Yes, they're cut
Yeah.
up and whatnot, and they're going to show the whole fight, but every kind of move and body position is pretty true to form how it actually happened. And so watching that and then having an idea and then Benny coming in and just making me feel comfortable, honestly, and kind of, hey, if we're kind of going a route that he wanted to steer it back to something else, he'd do that easily. And I really owe a lot of it to Benny, honestly. He just knows how to work with people and knows how to get the best out of people.
Was there anything from coming from the MMA fighter perspective that you maybe suggested they tweak it all, where it was in-ring fighting stuff, or hey, I think you would move around like this a little bit? Was there any conversations like that on set?
Yeah, there's a few. There's a few definitely that he took my opinion and boss's opinion, right, and changed a few things. It's little stuff like ice or something like that, or um, a wrestling scene. I had my sweatpants tucked into my socks, and the outfit person was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "This is how they rolled back in the day. It's gonna bring authenticity to the scene. Trust me." And Benny's like, "I love it. Roll with it." So stuff like that. And he would come to like Boss and I and be like, "Hey, is this kind of true to form?" We're like, "Absolutely," or maybe there's a little tweak. But I think DJ did great in those scenes before a fight, man, because I felt that watching that because I know how I feel before a fight in the locker room. You're distant and you're kind of like you're not there. You're behind your eyes, and I got the chills watching, a couple of those scenes in the locker room because I was like, man, that is real.
Yeah. Did you feel also more comfortable having Boss like also coming from the MMA world? I know he's done some acting stuff as
Yeah,
well, but like having someone coming from that perspective.
100%. The whole cast and crew were amazing. I didn't know what to expect. This is my first time, and for me, I'll definitely get the job done if I feel comfortable.
Mhm.
And I felt comfortable the whole time. And then when Boss there, I've known Boss, and we got even closer on set, and yeah, having him there, and he was there for the real story.
Yeah.
And so getting some little tidbits and opinions from him was crucial for sure, and kind of yes, I can talk to Coleman, but Coleman might give me a certain perspective, and I can talk to Boss of how Coleman was and how he viewed Coleman. So it's cool to get all those different sides.
And you mentioned DJ. Dwayne Johnson gives an
Mhm.
unbelievable performance in this movie.
Yeah.
You really like lose The Rock. You're not watching this and seeing The Rock. You're seeing Mark Kerr, and it's awesome. Was that
Yeah.
intimidating being on screen with him, though? Not only for the scenes like you mentioned where you're in the locker room or you're talking to the press, but there's some like really emotional scenes between the two of you guys. Was that tough for you, or did you slide right into that?
I felt pretty comfortable, and maybe it was because it wasn't The Rock, right? It
Yeah.
was Mark Kerr. He had prosthetics on and he looks like Mark Kerr. And then when he shaved his head, you're
Mhm.
looking at the real Mark Kerr, and he did a unbelievable job. And for me, I felt pretty comfortable with them right off the bat. And maybe it is because we're in those scenes that I'm comfortable in, right? Hey, I'm
Mhm.
cornering them. We're in a locker room. I'm getting them ready. We're buddies too. Um, I guess the biggest scene for me that's out of my wheelhouse would be, when I have to go and get emotional with him and kind of get him back, right?
Yeah. In the
That's
hospital,
one
right?
that, yeah, that's one that, it's dramatic. I'm not a dramatic, I've never acted before in my life, right? But I felt like I was looking at a buddy, and, I could put myself in that situation. I've had friends, I've gone down that kind of route, right? And then being around the real Mark Kerr too, and hearing the stories and stuff like that, and we're buddies. I can put myself in that situation. And we kind of shot that scene a little later in shooting, and so I was kind of in my groove by then.
Nice. And was there any like tricks of the trade that either Dwayne Johnson or even Emily Blunt taught you that you could share?
I did a lot of observing, right? And DJ did obviously amazing, and then watching Emily, who can ball cry on demand. The couple scenes that she's crying, we all cut, she stops, we do it again, and she's bawling again, right? And then I was maybe supposed to cry in the hospital scene, and three of us would be crying. I'm like, you guys have any bear spray or anything to like
Yeah.
irritate my eyes and stuff? And then Benny's like, there's too much emotion going on, too much crying. So why don't you be the strong one? I was like, all right, I can do that. Um, but just to watch them in, you know, in different scenes, and they'll do it different a little bit, and they'll throw different stuff at me, and it worked really well. And kind of picking their brains and stuff too. It was just amazing to get my first time to be in there with those two, and to
Yeah.
observe and watch how they did that. And DJ going through 5 hours of makeup, and then coming on set and doing his deal, and obviously that whole thing revolves around him. It was impressive.
Yeah, it's like walking into a gym as a white belt and getting to watch a couple
Yeah.
black belts spar, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
holy shit, this is crazy. Yeah.
Nuts.
Was there any movie homework that Benny gave you or delivered to you? I know some directors like to assign movies or something for like performances or tones, any inspiration like that?
He did. We did that audition on Zoom, and I asked him like, "Hey, I've never done this before. Do I get an acting coach?" He's like, "Absolutely not." He's like, "I want you exactly like you were in that audition." He's like, "I got it from here. I'm your acting coach." I'm like, "All right." And so he kind of just guided me on the way, like per scene, right?
Yeah.
And he'd make me feel comfortable, and he'd send me, a new script 2 minutes before I was walking on set. And I think he's
Jeez.
doing that on purpose, right?
Yeah.
Not to not get like pigeonholed in one, dialogue, right? And
Mhm.
could kind of use our own words a little bit. And yeah, so he was amazing in that aspect.
Maybe a stupid question, but just like an ignorant someone that's never acted before, was it hard for you to remember your lines? Like, did you have any tricks to remember your lines? I know some people write out like the first letter of every word or something like that.
Yeah. For me, obviously not doing it before, right? I thought we had to, for some reason, like memorize the whole thing, right?
Hmm.
And we do a ton. You get your sides kind of like the night before, and then you'll have a little time in the morning usually. So that night, I would just hammer those lines, that dialogue in the morning, be refreshed while I'm getting my, makeup, tattoo covering. Just keep hammering those. And for me, I'd read it the first couple times and be like, I'm not going to remember all this. By
Yeah.
the time we were ready to go on set, I was pretty good. I had it down. And then Benny would throw a different script at me right when I walked in.
Yeah, and it's like, oh shit,
Like, all right,
yeah.
I don't know. We just made it work, right?
Yeah.
And then we would play off. We'd play off each other a little bit too. Emily. I'm waiting for Emily to say the exact dialogue that's in the script, and she did it even more amazing with different dialogue. And I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna play off this. So we
Yeah.
were able to do that, which was pretty cool. I've heard, I don't know, but I've heard like other movies that you have to go word by word. We had some freedom in ours to kind of navigate it a little differently.
That's cool. It probably gave it that, sort of documentary feel as well. The camera work in the movie is so cool, where
Yep,
it's very tucked back. And I saw an interview with The Rock and Emily where they said sometimes they'd be acting and you don't even know where the camera is. It's like tucked in the back
absolutely.
room.
Yeah,
And it does give it such a realism in the movie. Like it feels like you're watching the documentary come to life.
that's what Benny's all about, right? And yeah, to be able to play off each other and not have to go word for word. I felt like it turned out really raw and real.
What was your favorite day on set?
My favorite day on set, it was actually my birthday, and it was my first fight scene. And these fight scenes took a while, right? I'm talking
Mhm.
like 4 to 5 hours in the ring in your little booty shorts, and makeup. We had tattoo covering on and stuff. It would come off. We have to get it redone. But I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
We had those fight scenes down, and it's tough on the body going. You're sweating, you're going hard, and then you're taking time off, and your body cools down. You do it again, you do it again. And my wife actually got to come up and in Vancouver and on set for that day. And long day, but we wrapped, and it was cool. The whole cast and crew sang me happy birthday in the ring there, and that was definitely a memorable day for sure.
That's awesome. And for those fighting scenes, it looks like the Tokyo Dome. It looks like it's
Yeah,
friggin' packed. How many extras were actually on set? Was it just kind of the floor surrounding the ring and then everything else is added in post?
yeah. There's probably 200 or so.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, they were around, and then I don't know what they do to in post Adam
Yeah.
to fill that whole arena, but there was actually a decent amount of people there, which was cool too because we were kind of like performing that fight in front of them too.
Yeah. Like
And
you
after
feed off the
that,
energy a little bit.
yeah, after we cut, they'd be clapping and stuff, and they'd be kind of rooting for one guy or whatever. And yeah, it was definitely super cool. And so we had a good the whole set every day had a good vibe to it.
Yeah. How long was the filming for you specifically?
Yeah, I think I got there in May. Had a couple weeks of kind of stunt training for the fights, and then probably till like July, and then we did a week in Japan.
Yep.
Yeah, so probably like I'd say May to August.
And I know you've got a fight coming up New Year's Eve in Japan, which is such a great MMA tradition, like legendary.
Yeah,
Are you excited to check that off the bucket list? Was that something you had in the back of your mind, even maybe while shooting this movie?
100%. I've always wanted to fight in Pride. Then obviously UFC fought them, and then had the non compete, whatever, and they rebranded as Ryzen, same owners, and we they came to us and was like, hey, we know you did the movie as Coleman. They did a heavyweight Grand Prix
Hmm.
in the movie. They're like, how would you like to do it for real? A heavyweight Grand Prix. And I think it's the first time since Coleman won it that they've done that.
Oh, is it
So
really?
I
Wow.
think
What a
so.
full
And so the
circle moment.
storylines,
Yeah.
yeah, storyline's too good. And I've always wanted to fight in Pride. Now it's Rising. I said, absolutely. Let's do it. So
What's
New
your
Year's
plan
Eve,
right now? Are you spending Christmas in Japan?
it's looking like that.
Yeah.
I went out there in May, and that travel and time change and all that, and then to be able to perform at your peak, you got to be out there pretty early. And so,
Yeah.
trying to break it to the wife in a nice, good way. I'm like, yeah, I might have to be out there like the 22nd or so.
Yeah. Is
But
there
yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
anything else on your MMA bucket list that you like really want to check off, like fighting in Japan New Year's Eve, something like that?
Not really. I feel like I've done it all, man. I fought
Yeah.
UFC for 20 fights. I've fought even before that, right? I fought for nothing in Mexico. I fought in a bullfighting ring in Mexico. I fought in here in Arizona on on Indian reservations and stuff like that. Which is looking back, it was a great time. Won the Ultimate Fighter, 20 fights UFC, two-time Bellator champion, won a Grand Prix, beat Fedor.
I was gonna
You
say
know,
fighting Fedor. What a moment
yeah,
that is.
twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've been fortunate enough to have those different experiences in MMA.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the one last deal would be, I have fought in Japan and UFC, I fought Rampage, but with the Japanese rules, in a ring.
Yeah.
With
And the New
that,
Year's Eve thing is such a thing
yes, with that
too.
fan base, it can't be any bigger and better. So I want to check that one off.
Yeah, I love the way this movie opens too, where it shows that like VHS style footage, and
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
brings you back to like, the earliest MMA footage that we
Valley
have. You look
Tudo in
back.
Brazil.
Exactly, yeah. It's
Yeah,
such a cool way to open the movie and then, transition to the 16 millimeter. Like Benny's just kind of a
100%.
master with that kind of stuff.
He's a
Um,
genius.
could you see yourself doing more acting in the future? Is this something that like you got a knack for, you want to do going forward?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I'm not that guy creative wise, right? And I've always used my body, physical form, wrestling, sports, MMA, and to be able to make something and be a part of something, so cool and part of my lineage too. Coleman and Kerr being great amateur wrestlers, getting to MMA and really not knowing all that much besides wrestling and dominating and doing well. And for me, I had a blast, and it gave me those fight feelings walking in. You have those nerves, it's scary, you're excited, and that's why I love stepping into a cage, because I have
Yeah.
those feelings. And then you have the feelings afterwards when you're successful, you won, or the relief of it being done. And I felt that, on set. And so I definitely like to do more.
What was it like watching the movie for the first time for you?
I do not like watching myself.
I was
So
gonna say
we
a
got
lot
to
of
watch,
people don't. Yeah.
we got to watch it at the theater. So we went in, my wife and kids and the in-laws, and my leg was shaking before it started. My wife's like, Benny showed her a bunch of stuff, and I'd never really watched it. And she's like, you did good. You did good. And then by the time it was finished and all that, I felt pretty confident. But yeah, I'm just not, it doesn't matter. If I watch myself, I'm my biggest critic, and, I'm not going to like it, but I'm glad other people are receiving it well.
And I assume Coleman has seen it at this point. Have you talked to
Yeah.
him since? Yeah.
Yeah. Benny texts me, and he's like, Coleman is standing up in the theater with his arms in the air, at the last scene. I was
That's
like,
awesome.
oh, I wanted obviously him to, and, enjoy
Pay
the
him respect.
movie,
Yeah.
and, him, being proud of my representation of him. And that was kind of my biggest kind of thing in the back of my head. Like, I hope he likes it.
Yeah.
And he did. So that was huge.
That's awesome. Aside from yourself, who else in MMA do you think you'd like to see a biopic about in the future?
Oh, man. Someone like Dan Henderson,
He'd be a great one. Yeah.
like Vanderlei Silva kind of guys. Like, I think, something like a Vanderlei, like where they came from, how they got into MMA, down in Brazil, and he made it to the big time. And then I like the fighters' stories that are jumping from like, hey, they went from Pride to UFC, and Valley Tudo back in the day. I feel like if those stories get out, and show people like all the work it took and the craziness that, happened in the early days to get to
Yeah.
where they were at, something like that for sure.
The kind of thing that the Smashing Machine documentary opened a lot of eyes to when that came out, right?
Oh yeah. Like eye gouges and headbutts, and,
Yeah.
down in Brazil and Valley Tudo, where there
Yeah.
really was no rules, and then, for me, as a kid, it was a VHS, the first couple UFCs, right? You might have a fight that's 40 minutes long,
Yeah.
and a boxer with one glove against a, jiu-jitsu guy and whatnot. And I think that's what draws a lot of people to the sport. And now it's evolved to where it's synonymous with NFL, NBA, It's cool to see where the sport has, it's grown, but it'd be cool to go back and show people like, hey, these were the early days and what it was like, and the
Yeah.
people that were in it. It's super cool.
I mean, the sport has grown so much, even since COVID, that there's so many new fans. I feel like they're going to watch this movie and the scene where they're going over the new rules and talking about how, eye
Yeah,
gouges and everything's now illegal people are going to be like, wait, that was legal at some point?
that was legal. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the early UFCs, right? They're groin
Yeah.
strikes and
Nut punches. Yeah. Yeah.
full hair.
Yeah.
It's
Insane.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fish hooks.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's why people tune in. And then, obviously as it progressed, they had to be like, all right, maybe we can't do some of that for the normal public. And then I think when the Ultimate Fighter came about and they showed, the fighters behind the scenes, just kind of like the Smash Machine, right? Where,
Mhm.
oh, that's a real person. He's not just a, caveman that wants to fight people. They just happen to be good at, wrestling or boxing, and they want to do something different with their life. They don't want to have a 9 to 5 and sit at a desk, and that's when the sport really started to blow up.
That
So
scene in
yeah,
the waiting room with Mark talking to the old
yeah,
woman and him telling her like, "Yeah, of course I don't hate everyone I'm fighting." And also she's like, "Isn't that thing that they're trying to ban right now?" Like
yeah,
that's also like a perfect little snapshot of that
yeah. She was
mindset
great.
there.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
And that's a perception,
Yeah.
especially even 10 years ago, right? Of, oh, this is barbaric, and these guys hate each other, and they just want to hurt people. Like, no, we're athletes, and we happen to be good. I happen to be good at wrestling, and it
Yeah.
transfers over to MMA really good. And I can dictate my own schedule and have the freedom I want in life. And so I think that kind of misconception is getting better as time goes on, right?
Yep.
But um, people always want to tune into the barbaric deal. That's why you're seeing, bare knuckle now being pretty
Yeah.
popular and stuff. They're like, all right, this is too tame now. What's the next one?
Is that something you would ever think about, the bare knuckle stuff?
Probably not. I know they're throwing around
I mean, I don't
a
blame
good
you.
amount of money, but yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah, I understand. Dude, great performance. Again, I was really, really impressed with the whole movie, your performance in particular, though, and I appreciate you giving me the time.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.